Good afternoon and welcome to All About Animals. I am Sherry Gratitor. I have two guests here today with a wonderful concept about a new animal shelter. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about what's going on.
I'm Jennifer Michaels.
And I'm Cassandra North.
We are trying to start up a no-kill dog shelter called Habitat for Hounds.
We're in the very beginning of the development stages. We've just put together our advisory board. We've begun raising money, and we're currently in search for property to house our driver shelter.
We do have a letter of intent in on a beautiful property in Barrington. We have already run into a few zoning issues, but we do plan to fight them. But we've gone through this before and lost that property. So we are continuing to search for more properties in other areas as well, just in case this one does happen to fall through.
It is a unique concept. Part of what you said is your outreach program, or actually your intake program, is you were talking about answering the issue of people losing their homes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we do want to do with this foreclosure crisis is people who have lost their homes that don't necessarily want to give up their dogs, but can't keep them at the moment because they're either staying with family that they can't have them or
can't afford to.
Or in a rental where they can't have them, sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. We would be willing to take in the dogs for a period of time and, house them and feed them, give them the medical care that they may need, and, do it obviously for no cost. The people obviously don't have the money. And the one thing that the people would have to give back to us is just the time. They would have to come in and volunteer maybe once a week at the shelter, and obviously keep the connection with their dog as well, and just show us that they are really committed to keeping their animal. And then obviously that dog would not be available for adoption. And then once they are ready to have their dog back, we would help them, with some food and the necessities that they may need.
And then if they couldn't take that dog back, ultimately that dog would go up for adoption.
Correct.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I might add that my conversations with shelters are showing that approximately 1 out of every 5 calls coming into the shelter of people trying to relinquish an animal are people who have lost or are losing their homes. They lose their home and the dog loses its family, and that's tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously there's only so much space that can be given up at a time, to house these dogs, because we also want to save dogs from the kill shelters and whatnot, but it is absolutely something that we want to do to help people save their dogs. I absolutely couldn't imagine being put in that situation at all, and so we want to do everything we can to help.
It is a heartbreaking and growing situation. However, you're taking it one step further. You said that you're trying to make this shelter not look like a shelter. Tell me about that.
Yes. We want to make this shelter more of a temporary home, more of a cozy setting, more of, we have bought many 8x, and this is all with our money, no donator money, 8x10 breed prints and some paintings and some fun leash hooks,
blankets for the dogs. Yeah, so to keep them comfortable. We were thinking that if it's a place where people enjoy to come, the people will be comfortable and friendly, our visitors, and the dogs will then react to them because they're comfortable and just be appealing for everybody.
Are you limiting to dogs?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be dogs only.
Yes.
Okay.
But this way you'll draw in more volunteers and, hopefully more potential adopters, more potential donators, and the more time people want to spend there, then the more time that's given to the dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
what else are you planning to do that differentiates your shelter?
There's hopefully, I think a bunch of different things. When the dogs first come in, and we're going to get our dogs from people surrendering their dogs, and then also take them out of the kill shelters. And all the dogs will be tested to make sure, obviously, they're not aggressive and they're not food aggressive, and that they'll all be adaptable and trainable. We're not going to limit breeds. And as we take them in, once they're accepted, we're going to quarantine them for 5 to 7 days in a more comfortable setting, because once dogs are moved, they're more nervous, more stressed out, which can, cause kennel cough. So the quarantine area will have little travel beds or kennel pads and blankets, and people will spend more time in there to sort of calm them down, make them feel more comfortable. And if a dog is noticed to be sick with kennel cough or something, they'll be immediately moved into the medical room, where they'll have the same level of comfort and care. And we're doing this, separating the dogs out, once they come in, and in the medical room, to stop the spread of sickness and disease,
Of course.
And which also helps lower the cost of medical care. And I've noticed in other shelters that some of the stuff isn't done, and I don't quite understand it. Because a lot of dogs do come in, especially from the kill shelters, with kennel cough.
Yes.
Because they don't have the funds to treat it. So once they're done with the quarantine and they're not moved to the medical ward, they'll go into the regular shelter. And in the shelter, we're going to have a doggy daycare type setting. I mean, they'll have their kennels, indoor, outdoor kennels, and we'd like to set up somewhat of a doggy daycare setting. So that
what do you mean by a doggy daycare setting?
Like the dogs will interact with each other. They'll have a constant dog and volunteer interaction. They won't just be set in their cages and let out on a number of times a day. You know what I mean? They'll just kind of have a chance to interact with each other, and hopefully...
So you have a place where the dogs can play together.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And let out some stress and exercise and play. It's a way for them to, just as you would take your dog to doggy daycare, we won't be letting outside dogs in. It'll only be for the shelter dogs.
Correct.
Yes. So, and I don't know of another shelter that does this, but it's definitely a way for them to get out, and instead of just staying in the kennel all day. So
our facility we're looking for a facility specifically designed to do these sort of things. Have an area where the dogs can be medically taken care of, have an area where they can be quarantined when we first get them, and absolutely have a piece of land where they can play and get their exercise. That's, in the dog interaction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the location in Barrington also allows us to have an indoor and an outdoor doggy daycare
Play area.
Right, absolutely. So, and we plan on having, 3 separate play areas so that we can separate them out by size and temperament. Just
and age and activity level.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And very frankly, one of the problems that I see in many shelters is dogs that are used to getting huge amounts of exercise, that are confined to cages, have a tendency to really get freaky and really unhappy.
And they can end up going crazy.
Yeah, they can. We call it cage crazy,
Yep.
and it's very sad.
It is. It's horrible. So we thought this would be a good way for them to sort of get that out.
How did you start with this idea?
There's one other thing that we do have, hopefully that will be different though from other shelters. We have the hopes of receiving premium foods through the help of Matt Kreiser in the parking lot.
Oh, it's a great place.
Yes, it's a great place, and we would be receiving that at no cost. He's been a tremendous help, and he's on our advisory board as well. So
you'll be able to feed premium food to the animals.
Such as Wellness and Canada, which would be fantastic. So I wanted to start this. I always rescued cats growing up. I mean, just stray cats for whatever reason. I've never been able to see an animal and let them be homeless and have no place to go. And my parents allowed me to keep 2.
That was good of them.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the rest they allowed me to keep in the home until I could find a home for them.